Hi, this is Ryan Gates with my Unit 3 presentation. Um, the lab activity that I chose was from a eScience lab kit that was made for biology, given to me through iNACOL due to a door prize that I won at iNACOL. Um, I chose this lab kit because it was in the field that I have the most students, biology. And I thought that the Chemistry of Life Lab number 5 applied to both my chemistry and biology students. So I was interested in how it would work and look at it as through the eyes of a teacher. As you can see from this picture, this was the Chemistry of Life Lab kit within the lab kit that I won, which had multiple labs in it. As you can see, it includes nutrient agar, pH paper, plastic wrap, paraffin film wrap, and other things within it. Due to the limit on materials that they give you, this activity is not made um, with crucial mistakes in mind. You're required to use 40 milliliters of nutrient agar, and the nutrient agar, once you use those 40, there is some left over, but it is not 40 milliliters worth of leftover. You do use bromethyl blue also, but you use that in other labs, so they give you an excess of that. Now, theoretically, you could use a nutrient agar that's in place for a microbiology lab, but then you wouldn't have enough, possibly wouldn't have enough for the microbiology lab, but you could probably squeeze out those two labs based on what you have left if you make a crucial mistake. It took me, uh, in reality, for all the lab activities, it only took me 30 minutes to complete. However, the second activity they say it takes 24 hours to solidify. I decided to wait that time, but the nutrient agar we heated up to till it was liquid and then re-poured it into a plastic mold, and then I left it to cool. I actually put it in the refrigerator knowing that it would take less time to cool, but I did use the full 24 hours. So technically it probably was 24 hours and 30 minutes to do for me, but I felt like the student would probably take maybe a half hour longer than me, so probably 25 hours, so an hour of activity with 24 hours of wait time. This activity really compared to other activities that I had done, especially the pH part where I was guessing pH values for household items like vinegar and then sodium bicarbonate solution. And really, I remember doing that exact lab in a traditional setting when I had orange juice, milk, vinegar, bleach, all those kind of things all laid out or set out within the room, and you took a pH strip and you went and tested it and you compared it and you said, well, this was my guess, this is what it really was. So what's an acid, what's a base? That stepping point there. And the second part of the lab, well, I haven't done anything like it. It definitely, you know, surface area volume ratios, I can see how it plays out. Uh, exactly like what you would set up in a traditional setting with blocks, rather than nutrient agar and things like that. I did not run into any technical issues. I didn't have any material issues or other obstacles. Everything went smoothly. For this activity, I definitely think this would be either a pre-assessment for them to read to get to know pH and then volumes and cells and how the surface area of the cell affects um, you know maximum size and things like that, it just it doesn't feel enough. So I would definitely use um, this as a pre-assessment. Um, that's what it feels like to me. And for the in a class overall, I'd probably give this. Then it would then be a jumping off point to pH and diffusion, and you know the overall what surface area means towards osmosis and diffusion, and then pH levels and things like that. It definitely that's what I would use this for. I really felt um, this, like I said, as a teacher, this activity, while interesting when I first looked at it, and just in terms of chemistry of life, lab, there should be a lot more. But the three questions at the end, um, it has multiple questions in this first question here, uh, but it just seems like it's too little. There's not a lot of critical thinking going on. A lot of this information um, is not fully provided eh, in the introduction information. The pH level. The two questions is compare and contrast acids based in terms of H plus and IOH minus ion concentrations. Um, they would then need to go out and look it up if your information was not provided. Really, if that's the information that they've just gone over, and this is the lab that they just did, does it really reinforce the information they learned? Um, shouldn't they already be able to name two acids and bases they often use based on their information before? I think there's a lot more you can do here. What I do like, though, was in the lab kit itself, they gave a safety box for all the labs, and this was the safety box, and this right here was the safety materials that they gave you: an apron, um, a glasses, gloves, things like that. I really like the fact that they gave that safety materials, because that even though they're doing it at home, I think lab safety should be taught, and that it should be something that comes up quite often. Um, the overall kit experience, opening it up and seeing this, it it would be daunting as a student to see that. I mean, all of these things are an individual lab that they do, and some of these, like the right here underneath this, is test tubes, and they don't have specific labs written on them, so you have to go to the lab manual, which is on a CD, um, and go figure out where it's at. And on the CD itself, the lab manual, this is the lab manual, but I split it into the lab 5. I I was able to split the 10 pages that the PDF was, but the student is given a lab uh, a lab manual that has every single lab in that lab kit, uh, and it's not very it's not very easy to get through. So this is what they provide you, and you'll notice it's 328 pages, and I was just shocked at. And this is what they give you at lab safety, all those kind of things. But I really was shocked at how non user friendly it is. Like, why don't they have a link here for lab 1? Why can't they click it, and then that way it would take them to directly to lab 1? Why can't I go lab 5 chemistry life, click there, and keep going? It really was cumbersome, and just because I know that I can hit Control F and then find lab 5, was I able to then go, oh, that starts on page 51. or I would be scrolling down all the way down to 51. Now the back to the lab itself and the what I did. I like that it forced you to find household items, because I think that's kind of interesting for students to look and see what they have in the around the house that would be acids and bases. As you can see, I know milk of magnesia. I grabbed the obvious ones that so I could get a wide variety of acid and bases. And then I do like that they got to use nutrient agar, because I think that's something that they can see that it changes composition. That's what I use there, and that they did provide the specific tools needed, like the 40 milliliter beaker, and then the bromethyl blue, and everything that the pH reaction once I did add the sodium bicarbonate. So as a teacher, it wasn't enough. It was pretty toothless, pretty lacking in a lot of things, but could be used as a pre-assessment to find ways that you can um, build off of it. I think it's definitely a stepping stone, and it even lacks a little bit in terms of the lab report. I thought that the content standards that it touched upon for the Oregon State standards was H1P1, which is explain how atomic structure is related to properties of elements and their position in the periodic table. Explain how the composition of nucleus is related to isotopes and reactivity. I think it was on its way in terms of structure related to properties like ions, OH minus, H plus. Um, they also, within the directions in the introduction, they said that compare and contrast the four types of organic macromolecules. And they started in on that. If you look at the lab manual, which is right here, you can see that they do talk about the reactions that occur within the cell, basics of chemistry, all matter is made up of atoms, and then the electrons, and all the things that start to build on that, um, properties of elements and things like that. And then you can see that they finally start talking about macromolecules here: cell metabolism, reproduction, common biological macromolecules are proteins, nucleic acid, carbohydrates, and lipids. They do mention all those things, and that they do talk about OH minus and H plus, and so it starts building upon those, building towards those standards for at least for the state of Oregon. Um, yes, it's building towards it, but I don't know how much it actually does directly address those content standards. So in wrap up, I really the Lab 5 for e-science, at least in this lab kit, the chemistry of life was something that needed to be a little bit more rigorous, something that really challenged the students rather than to find two questions based on pH, and then again one question based on or three questions on the surface area and the size of cells and how that affects it. Um, you know, standards weren't there either. It just felt like there was a lot missing, and a lot could be built on it. As a teacher, I wouldn't be happy for the students to actually complete this lab, because it's just not, it doesn't help them, because it's too easy and too shallow. No depth to this, and that's what I feel as a teacher for this Lab 5 Chemistry of Life e-Science lab.